you get half of them going just like that. The other half, you're going to have to call and negotiate and try to cut a deal. But I never tell the creditor, I don't have an obligation to that creditor. I got an obligation to me. That's it. So I don't tell that creditor I'm trying to negotiate this to clear a real estate transaction, because if you do that, like most people do, well, they know that you have they have leverage on you, and they're not going to cut you a very good deal. If I tell them, hey, I'm trying to help somebody clear up some problems, that's true, and I'm willing to settle this with you, $200,000 judgment, it's 9 years old, it's going to be uncollectible a year anyway, I'm willing to give you $5,000 for it. You know these people are broke. You know you haven't gotten anything out of them anyway. At least this $5,000 will cover your legal fees. Would you do that if I pay you tomorrow? Happens so often you couldn't believe it.
That's really interesting. Yeah, we had one recently. It was an IRS lien, so I doubt that one would have been fixable. But have you dealt with any government, negotiated with the government ever successfully?
You have to treat them differently because remember, your counterparty is the government. And if you do something that is questionable, well, let me say it this way. You shouldn't do anything that's questionable anyway, but you can be much more aggressive when it's just standard private creditors, and they might argue that they don't like the way you handled it, or you might have a dispute. But when you're doing that with a stakeholder like the federal government, there's no room to be even close to the line because they have so much more authority, and you don't want to come anywhere near that. But the interesting thing is IRS liens still have statutes of limitations, and you've got to look at that IRS lien, and sometimes it's indexed to the individual and not indexed to the property. That's different. Sometimes you have a lot more ability to discuss a settlement if it's a little bit older, if it's not indexed to the property. So there are times where we'll try to negotiate on the behalf of the creditor, or I'm sorry, the debtor. And we don't really give a reason unless they ask. We won't disclose things, but yeah, there's negotiations that can happen there too. The IRS knows that when it gets beyond a certain point, the probability of collection is very low. Most of these IRS liens, here's what happens. Mason and Dan's business is having a tough year and they didn't really make a lot of money. The last thing they're going to do is call the CPA and go spend $5 or $10 grand filing their taxes and going through all this paperwork. They're towards the end of this business anyway. Fuck it. That's what happens a lot.